This is the talk Stratos project update, what's next? My name is Neil MacDougall. I'm a technical engineering manager at SUSE and I lead the Stratos project. In this session I'm going to talk a bit about Stratos, very quickly, kind of what we've been doing over the last few months, and then I will be looking forward mainly to what's coming next with Stratos. So how did we get here? Real brief, back in 2017, SUSE open sourced Stratos, which it had been developing. We then showed it at the summit in Europe that year. We proposed at the end of the year that we incubate Stratos as part of the Cloud Foundry extensions PMC. That was accepted in the following year, and roll on a little bit forward. And in September of last year, we finally graduated out of incubation and became a core Cloud Foundry project, and with that the rename. So you will now find us github.com/cloudfoundry/Stratos. Stratos continues to be an active project, so this was an analysis we came across the end of last year, done by some other company, and Stratos came out as a very active project, which was nice to see. In terms of recent releases, we, over the last, I guess, few months, these are the releases we've pushed out, and some of the things we've done, which I will show real briefly in a minute in a short demo. Things like being able to back up your endpoints and tokens if you're using multiple Cloud Foundries. General improvements of things like the application deployment UI, things that maybe you don't see, but behind the scenes improving scalability. So if you have a Cloud Foundry that has a large number of orgs and spaces or apps, users, we've tried to optimize things as much as possible so that you get a much more kind of responsive UI. You're not sat waiting for too long. And we try and be as smart as we can, making sure that it works well for the case that you have a small system as well as a system that has large numbers of apps or orgs. We added things like being able to deploy applications via Docker image. There's a dark mode, the support for viewing CF events, and things like the autoscaler UI, which was a contribution from our colleagues at IBM. We continue to refine that and update that. What I'll do now, I'll give you a quick demo of Stratos. I'll focus on some of those just so you get a taste for some of the things that have gone in there, and then we'll come back and talk about what's next. One of the things we've added, we've improved, just a nice thing. If you get a profile, if you've got your email address set, you can now change the avatar icon to your gravatar. That's quite nice. You can also choose a dark theme, so we've added dark theme support. You can either explicitly switch over to the dark theme, or you can pick up your OS setting, so that's quite nice. Two small things. In terms of applications, you can now deploy an application from a Docker image. So this allows you to go through as before, we'll go all the way through, and you can give an application name and select a Docker image. So you could, for example, deploy Stratos from its all-in-one image. And this works the same way as pushing an application from, say, GitHub repo. Other things we've done, if I look at an application, we've added some extra information down here, so you can now easily get the application GUID. You can see also the sort of health check configuration for that app. So little things like that are quite nice. If you use Stratos for multiple endpoints, so I know a lot of people don't, they have Stratos configured against a single Cloud Foundry, but of course we let you connect in multiple Cloud Foundries, and if you find yourself building up quite a set of endpoints, you can now backup and restore. So I can choose backup, and I can select the endpoints that I want to back up, select all of those, give it a password, and then I will be able to download a file. It's encrypted, it contains my information, and then I could go ahead and restore those, and that would overwrite the configuration I have. So that's quite useful. Other things we've added, support for showing the Cloud Foundry events. So if I go into the event view here. This is new, so you can see the events across Cloud Foundry. So previously we had these down at an application level, but now we have them at the top level as well. And you can choose to filter by, say, app crash, so you can see which of our applications crashed. That's also quite nice. We've done things like make sure the feature flags are all up to date, and the new ones that have been added have descriptions and are kind of recorded here nicely. Maybe it's a little bit hard to demo or show. We have made some tweaks to the sizing of the UI, so we use, again, it's maybe quite hard to see here, but we use the Angular material library, and that's by default sized for more mobile devices, tablet devices. Obviously, for a desktop environment, there's a bit more real estate, and you tend to want sort of smaller icons and boxes to fit a bit more on. So we have, in those scenarios, we detect the sort of browser type. We can determine whether it's a desktop environment, and then we shrink things down a little bit. So you'll see that if you're looking carefully, that we are just trying to do those kind of UI refinements across the board. Okay, so what is next? Coming up, I guess, version 4 will be in July or August, hopefully. The main update there is around some sort of rework to support extensions, which I'll talk about more in a second, and then bug fixes. So we're working through a lot of kind of bug fixes and some of the smaller issues and improvements that we've had on the backlog for a while. Too many to mention here, but we'll really try and get through as many of those as we can. It's going to be a version 4. We are making some changes to the extensions, which means that if you've created a theme previously or you've created a front-end extension, then you will need to rejig those slightly because we'll be changing the way things are structured. So you will need to make changes. So in that sense, it's a breaking change. Hence, that's why we're bumping to version 4. We'll try and keep people updated in the Slack channel. We will be looking this year to be supporting the V3 API, and I'll talk about that in a second. We also try and ensure that we have compatibility with some of the new kind of pieces coming in the Cloud Foundry domain. So, for example, Eirini, that's been around for a while, is starting to be used more and more. We want to make sure Stratos works well with that when you're using Eirini rather than Diego. The new kind of work to have Cloud Foundry deployed on Kubernetes, so either kubectl or CF for K8s, we want to make sure that Stratos works with those projects as they develop. Extensions mechanism, I'll talk more about that, and then also Kubernetes extensions. Some work we've done at SUSE that we're interested in upstreaming and seeing if more people are interested in those. So V3 API support, this has been coming for a while. We have been following the work the team's been doing and making our kind of use cases and requirements kind of known to them and getting feedback and giving feedback to them indeed. We're figuring out how we can continue to support both V2 and 3 users as they upgrade. So if you have a Foundry that's on V2 and then maybe another Foundry at V3, how can a single Stratos work with both of those? So it's something we're thinking about being able to support. We're looking at obviously planning to support and switch over to the new API. So the V3 API is obviously different to the V2. So in addition to it being a different API, there are some different concepts in there, things like processes, tasks, deployments, etc., that we need now to bring out through the UI that weren't previously shown in the V2 support within Stratos. So this is a fair chunk of work that we've started already, mainly around the planning, investigation, and you'll see us through the remainder of the year start to implement V3 API support. So Eirini, I don't want to say too much here. What we have done, it's not in the main code yet, it's in a sort of POC, is allow you to get the same view that you would with Diego with Eirini. So with Diego, if you've got metrics available, then you can see which Diego cell a particular Cloud Foundry application instance is running on. We want to make sure that you can get the same kind of experience with Eirini when you're deployed on Kubernetes. So that's something we're going to move forward and make available. So then the big topic really is around extensions. If you're familiar with Stratos, today we kind of already have extensions. So you can customize and extend Stratos. You can create a new theme. So if you want to change the look and feel, then that's fairly easy to do, and there's a way of doing that. If you want to add in new views or change the login or add support for new endpoints, then you can do that. Most users of Stratos use it purely for Cloud Foundry, or at least a lot of them do, but we have a sort of general mechanism for dealing with endpoints, as we call them, whether they're Cloud Foundry or Kubernetes, for example. And you can use the extension points to add in support for those different types of endpoint today. And if they have different authentication providers behind them, then you can add support for those too. And there's kind of two areas where you can extend, obviously in the front end, which is an Angular application, you can extend there, and also in the back end, which is our kind of API server ready to go. And so this you can all do today. And that current model around this really is sort of fork the repository. So the use case is very much user or enterprise. They want to take Stratos, they want to maybe add a new theme and add some extra functionality. And they would do this by forking the repository and placing their customizations within a specific top-level folder, with the intent that this reduces the conflicts you get when you want to resync with upstream. But what we want to get to is we want to make it easier to share those extensions. So this comes to some extent with our own experience from SUSE of building the Kubernetes and Helm extensions that we've done, and then thinking about how could we make those available to other people more easily. So where we want to get to is start to package things up a bit differently. So there's maybe what you might think of as the Stratos framework, so the kind of the default theme, the store, which deals with all of the way we store data about entities, the components, which is our UI library. We use an Angular material here, so we try not to build components unless necessary, but we have quite a few components that we use that make it easier and are things that people would maybe want to use when building extensions. Then we have core, which really provides the core of the app in terms of login, the structure of the views, the about, all that kind of stuff, which all then constitutes the app. So there's those. We want to turn those into a set of packages. We then want to make the Cloud Foundry functionality into an extension, the autoscaler into an extension, and where companies like SUSE have their own customizations, make those into extensions, so that you could basically take any of these packages and build a version of Stratos that includes the functionality that you want. So I just want to talk a little bit about Kubernetes extensions. I haven't got time to show these today in this session, but just wanted to say SUSE has been developing and maintaining extensions for Kubernetes and Helm. These are all open source, Apache 2 licensed. We keep them separate for now in the SUSE repository, but we see there's growing interest in the CF community as CF and K8s come together. And so we're looking to know if people are interested in us upstreaming these extensions to Stratos so that they are in the upstream CF repository and then much more easily available for others to take and use. Some of the high-level features: you can register and connect multiple Kubernetes and endpoints and Helm repositories. You can view information for a particular Kubernetes endpoint. You can browse Helm charts, install a Helm chart, view details about a Helm release. We've started to put some analytics engines in there so that you can then run analysis over your kube workloads and resources and start to see where there are issues, and then start to show the relationships between Kubernetes resources more visually. So please let us know if you're interested in us taking the Kubernetes functionality we have in the SUSE fork of Stratos and making that available upstream. So as I said, don't have time to show this now, but if you click on this link, it'll take you to YouTube where I've recorded a longer video which takes you through some of those Kubernetes extensions. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. If you use Stratos, please let us know. We love to hear from our users. We love to hear from people who are taking Stratos, using it with their customers as well. If you've developed an extension or you've customized a theme, we love to know about that, so that as we make changes we can be mindful of the community that uses Stratos. Your input really is vital. We're looking to improve and grow Stratos going on into the future. We need your views on features you'd like to see, your bug reports, improvements for better docs, all that kind of stuff. So please engage with us as much as you can. Kind of to recap, our focus is on extensibility and making it much easier for people to contribute independently and to really get cracking on the v3 API support. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the Cloud Foundry Summit.